Hey, how's it going, guys? This is your boy Hazzed, and today we're going to be talking about Frost DK in PvP and why the heck it is so dang terrible inside of Rated Arena. Now, I'm going to actually try and restrain myself from getting very angry at whichever World of Warcraft developer decided to do this to Frost DKs, but we're going to go right into direct detail because there's definitely some incompetence going on with whoever is working on our class. So let's jump into this video and talk about it.
It's who we are, it's what we do, we've come so far, and now we pay the price, so don't even cry. The world is breaking down, and I cannot leave the ground.
Looking around within the Frost DK community and definitely on the forums, you could see that the general population of DK players that are trying to do PvP, either Unholy or Frost, more so Frost, absolutely hates playing their Death Knight in PvP situations right now. Now, if you look at the arena ladder, it definitely supports that. Generally, I don't see myself agreeing with a lot of the Frost DK comments on the forums, but at the moment, there is some crazy things that they're saying, but for the most part, their general idea of Frost DK not being very great is definitely accurate 100%. Frost DKs in 2v2 on the ladder above 2k do not exist. They literally just don't exist. They aren't up there. Last time this happened was literally in Warlords of Draenor when there was only 4 Frost DKs above 2k inside of Arena. Literally, I have a screenshot of it, an old video from when I first started making videos. It hasn't been this bad since Warlords of Draenor, and it literally has never been this bad as far back as I can remember. Now, discussing 3v3 arenas for Frost DKs, literally non-existent. Every DK you see is either playing Unholy. I believe there's one Blood DK on that list for like the top 500, and there's no Frost DK in sight anywhere. Obviously, just those supportive ideas of people's compliments on the forums, and of course looking at the ladder at the current moment, it is very easy and very clear to see that there is something wrong with Frost DKs inside of PvP. Now, obviously, a video like this needs to come with constructive criticism and, of course, facts to kind of say, yes, we know what we're talking about. Now, I can definitely trace it back to when Frost DKs really started to have problems here in Battle for Azeroth. It's very simple, it's very clear. It came with the pre-patch nerfs / buffs they decided to give to Frost DKs directly before Battle for Azeroth launched. Now, a lot of people probably remember on beta that our Frostworm's Fury and our Cold Heart was hitting for, I'd have to say maybe 50 to 60% stronger than it currently is. Now, currently, it's absolutely garbage. Like, it doesn't hit for crap. A Warrior's Mortal Strike literally hits as hard as a 3-minute cooldown that Frost DKs have. A Rogue, a Muty Rogue, literally hits harder than our 3-minute cooldown every, 8 seconds with Envenom. Like, it's some ridiculous nerfage that they put on Frost DKs. Now, what I really hate about that whole situation is the band-aid that they put on top. This is where they really messed up with Frost DKs, when they didn't put the damage into other abilities and other things that we could accumulate damage to actually produce kills inside of PvP and Arena, is they basically just buffed our dot and disease damage by 44%. So I can go into a battleground just like I did in a different video, and I can top DPS with over a third of my damage being complete dot damage. Is a Frost DK supposed to be complete dot damage inside of PvP instances? Heck no. Heck no, that is supposed to be Unholy doing that much AoE dot damage inside of Battlegrounds and not a Frost DK. My damage should be more delegated towards burst, hitting the target, and of course breath or any major cooldowns I have besides that. Now, currently the only major damage dealing ability Frost DKs have that actually slightly match other classes is Breath of Sindragosa, which is absolutely terrible inside of current PvP. All I had to do was a handful of rated matches to see I was getting CC locked or mobility every single time I bursted. That's all they have to do is do that, because outside of our major breath cooldowns, Frost DK doesn't do jack for damage. Literally, our consistent damage, which is supposed to be our bread and butter, which was our bread and butter in Legion, is almost non-existent inside of current Battle for Azeroth. Now, the other reason I know that this is the case is because I've been doing alpha testing and beta testing all the way through the creation of Battle for Azeroth, and I've kind of was dueling a lot. I was dueling a ton of other classes with each stat build with Frost DK, trying to figure out what was going on. And the major issue I ran into with Frost DK is literally the major issue I'm running into now inside of Arena. It's our overall consistency damage is terrible, and the reason being for that is because they put the majority of our damage into 44% increase on our dot damage instead of putting it into raw damage, instead of making it into obliterate, instead of putting it in cold heart so we have a little bit more enhanced burst, instead of putting it into Frostworm's Fury. But no, they dump all of our damage into one single breath of Sindragosa cooldown and expect that to be viable inside of arena situations where literally all it's going to take is a stun, which, not to mention, to actually burst correctly when we're stunned inside of arena, we either are forced to use IBF or we're forced to use a trinket, which both of those are very key factors that you need to save to actually be competitive defensively inside of arena situations. Not to mention our defensives are totally crap compared to how much DPS the other classes are able to deal. So, going into specific details, fighting an enhancement shaman, I can burst on the enhancement shaman, I can do a ton of damage, I can get a huge lead, I've outplayed him up to the point that my consistent damage comes into play. The enhancement shaman can literally go from 30% health back up to full because of how garbage our overall consistent single target pressure is going to be. So using the Blizzard developers idea of Frost DK, we're slow moving, we deal a lot of damage once we reach the target, is a complete, I mean, it's a good idea, but it's complete crap at the moment because we don't deal that much damage when we reach the target. We are literally dealing less DPS for when I reach a target than when I'm not. It's absolutely terrible. How is a class that's this slow supposed to compete inside of rated arena when we're literally walking towards the target? By the time we reach the target CCs out our breath, and all we can rely on is consistent damage that happens to be extremely lower than the other classes' consistent damage. So we lack mobility, we lack consistent damage, and our burst is literally CC locked out. We can't resort to using Cold Heart, we can't resort to using Breath of Sindragosa or Frostworm's Fury, because they hit so puny. We can't set up a major burst outside of literally using our breath. So that makes our class right there very, very controllable, because everybody else already knows what they need to avoid. Literally, that big breath that comes out when he starts dealing a lot of damage, yes, stun it, it's going to be gone. Fear him, he's going to be forced to use Trinket, and after that, he becomes a very easily killed target inside of arena. So we can tell just by that alone where the major issues are going to be falling for Frost DK. We need buffs. Frost DKs need help inside of rated arena. What kind of buffs do we need? Now let's go ahead and jump into that now that we've identified where the definite problem for Frost DKs is inside current arena. So we're getting down to what exactly needs to be fixed for Frost DKs, so we will be more viable inside of rated arenas and or rated battleground situation. That's not literally padding damage with that 44% extra dot damage that they kind of put on us like a band-aid and said, hopefully nobody will notice Frost DK sucks because they can do an okay amount of damage in AoE. Well, we just kind of ripped that band-aid off. We know it's there. They kind of like hidden buff that. They didn't want to tell everybody, but it was in there somewhere. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about exactly what needs to be changed for Frost DKs to be viable inside of rated arena. So going over our damage, it mainly comes down to the breath problem. Now, breath, I do like using breath inside of arena situations, but the problem is not with Breath of Sindragosa itself. The problem comes from our overall damage. Now, the major issue that I see, and I can relate back to Warlords of Draenor for this, is our Obliterate and our Frost Strike. They do not do nearly enough pressure for us to be viable inside of rated arena situations. Now, different different things that could be causing this obviously comes down to PvP talents could be a major effect, such as the ability Tundra Stalker, which the critical strike chance of your Frost Strike is increased by 50% for 6 seconds after Frost Strike hits an immobilized target. I've got to tell you, compared to what this talent used to be, this is absolute trash. Like, you get a small buff for how many Frost Strikes? And honestly, Frost Strike doesn't really do that much damage and doesn't really apply that much pressure unless you're using Obliteration, which Obliteration really isn't a viable talent to use because it does such little damage, both inside PvP and in raids. We already know that it's not that great in raids. Now, the one thing I can definitely say about these two abilities is they are hitting for crap, alright? Like, look at that Obliterate. This is absolute crap, alright? Frost Strike and Obliterate just doesn't do hardly anything. Back in Warlords of Draenor, back when we had a two-hander and of course one-handers, it was optional to choose between. When you used a two-hander, your Obliterates hit significantly harder than your Frost Strikes did. Reason being, it was a big two-hander. It wasn't based off frost damage. You didn't have the runic stacks going on the target to increase the damage, which would actually allow you to pump out quite a bit of burst damage on a target just using Obliterates and rolling over your cooldowns or rolling over your runes at the correct time, applying a large amount of burst pressure in a small amount of area. And that was kind of like the uppity outside of using breath, kind of like that lift up for dealing major damage outside, and of course setting up for a kill just based off of small cooldowns like Pillar of Frost and things like that. It became viable to actually force cooldowns outside of major burst abilities, so we could actually get a play on a target, not just burst into bubble, burst into turtle shell, burst into stun, burst into fear, and absolutely hate our lives on a Frost DK afterwards because we don't have enough damage for anything. Now, when it comes to dual wield, we could also look back to Warlords of Draenor and realize that our Frost Strike back then did a heck of a lot more damage than our Obliterate when dual wielding, and that was one of the reasons I enjoyed playing dual wield Frost DK back then, was because our Frost Strike hit so hard. So anytime we didn't have major burst, we were able to, let's say, build up our Frost or our runic cap over here, build it up as high as we possibly could, and I'm waiting a little bit so we can get it up just a little bit higher. And what we were able to do would, of course, is pop Pillar of Frost, and we were able to runic dump on the target to produce a major generation of single target burst that we could use to set up for a kill or something along those lines. And as it is right now for Frost DKs, really that kind of playstyle is not viable. You can't do it. It doesn't deal enough pressure. It's not good enough. So quite literally, our kill window on a Frost DK relies within Breath of Sindragosa, but our burst is not, I'd say, the big issue, because I can land kills with Breath of Sindragosa, but it takes an idiot to stand in it to do it. Alright, so the one thing Frost DK needs more than anything is a two-hander. No, it needs more than anything is consistent burst damage. That's what we need. We need something to make plays outside of Breath of Sindragosa because it is so terrible inside of rated arena situations. Nobody's playing Frost at high ratings. Nobody wants to play Frost at high ratings because the problems are they're huge. They're huge problems with Frost DK. So this is exactly what we need. We need either, I'd say for dual wield, we need higher Frost Strike damage. Like, we need to fix this PvP talent over here, Tundra Stalker. We need to fix this talent so it goes back to how it was originally, where it increased Frost Strike damage along with also increasing critical strike. Because, okay, the way it worked was if a target was rooted, you would get increased Frost Strike damage. If the target was just changed to where they were slowed when they were snared, it would increase your critical strike rating the entire time. Now it's just like 6 seconds, which you get maybe 2 or 3 Frost Strikes out of, because Frost Strike doesn't really hit that hard. You don't really put it higher than the other abilities. It's not great to do that with. Like, I don't understand why they would even do that to Frost Strike. It makes literal no sense at all. So what exactly do we need as Frost DKs to be viable again for single target damage in PvP? We need harder Frost Strikes for bursting literally. Or I mean, there's other things we could do, like, you know, take off the hidden nerfs to Cold Heart that made this talent completely crap inside PvP, or we could buff up Frostworm's Fury Kite a bit, which I really don't want to do that, because relying on a 3-minute cooldown again alongside of Breath of Sindragosa would be absolutely terrible. So developers, look at me, make eye contact with the camera, come on, look. Buff Frost Strike damage so we have a viable burst outside of Breath of Sindragosa, because I literally can't make plays on certain classes such as a Ret Paladin, who I can burst on up front, Breath of Sindragosa, force a bubble, and then afterwards watch a Ret Paladin full heal over and over again, because I literally don't have the damage to kill a Ret Paladin of the same gear set. This is the problem that Frost DKs are having. This is the problem that needs to be fixed. Go ahead and comment down below if you agree with me, or do you have any other ideas of stuff that we should do. But obviously something needs to happen and something needs changed. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really dislike making videos like this, but leave a like on this video if you guys can to help me out. And again, until next time, this was your Angry Boy Hazed.